I really appreciate your time. There's so many things I want to ask you. And we were connected in the first place because of the digital museum that was announced earlier this month and launched. How long was that in the works for before you announced it?
Actually, yeah, it's not that long. And the thing is, as you may have heard, 2020 was a very special year, especially the 160th anniversary of the first encounter between New York and Japan. So originally, we planned to have the parade, Japan parade. Somehow, and you may have heard, the 61 years ago from this year, 1860, when samurai came to New York City, they did parade, and more 500,000 New Yorkers welcomed it. Then ever after that, so no major Japan parade was made in this city, where all those ethnic groups love doing parade, almost any, except Japan. So we had idea to do the first ever Japan parade on May 2020. And the Japanese community got together to do it. We are excited, but because of the pandemic, it was canceled. Then while we were working on this parade, I just realized we do have the rich history between New York and Japan, that we do not know much about it. The more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know. And this is very important, especially during the 19th century. And so many things actually took place between the fairly new country of the United States and the fairly old country, Japan, although the modernization that has just started in the middle of the 19th century. So the encounter between two countries is so fascinating. Then I just realized we have to do this. And even before that, I've been hearing a lot of the Japanese who came here a century ago. 50 years ago, and they struggled. We had a war. Even before the war, there was this anti-Asian sort of feeling, even early 20th century, like a yellow peril. So legislation actually prohibited the Japanese nationals to own the land. So those things took place. And even after the war, after US-Japan relation became so rich and we have a great alliance, but still we had trade war. If you remember. So somehow the Japanese people, to me, was kind of hesitant to talk about ourselves. Better to be quiet and do our own job for the sake of the, say, peaceful atmosphere.
Right.
Somehow. And from the beginning, we are not that outspoken anyway. But probably those days should be over. Then we should talk about ourselves. And because New York is so generous to accept us as a part of New York. Then, we should do something to talk about ourselves, to give our history. And that was the kind of the genesis of the idea. Then one I still remember the one moment that I should do this was my visit to Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's only 10 minutes sort of walk from my residence. So I frequently visit there. But in the middle of pandemic, Metropolitan Museum of Art celebrated 150th anniversary. And I visited there many times and to watch all those great paintings and objects and sculptures and anything. And the 150th anniversary. Then I bought the big book of the photograph book.
Yeah.
Like including a lot of the things of the paintings and also the stories of how Metropolitan Museum became this big. So it was fascinating. The starting point was, I just briefly mentioned my remarks today, was Americans living in Paris. 4th of July, next year of the end of the Civil War. The United States was still a new country and struggling itself.
Right.
It's overcoming the sort of differences and the fighting within the same country. The Americans in Paris. So Paris, it's advanced countries, a lot of museums. So they thought, oh, we should build a museum to unite the people. So 4 years before actual building of the Fifth Avenue. So the first thing was first. So the people came together to share their determination, to share their passion, to share their vision. And so, oh, this is something we should do. That was the kind of beginning of the creation of this council, the Japan Council, Japan History Council in New York.
Yes.
New York. And then, so I really thought, and I asked my friends and sort of important people that why don't we come together within the end of 2020, because 2020 is very important. And then it became December. Then I thought, okay, December 12th is a nice day because it's easy to remember 20201212, right?
Right.
And actually this December 12th is a birthday of Akiyoshi Toshiko.
Yes, who was on that call.
Yes.
Yeah, a couple of days ago. She had the very impressive background with the drum set, which I didn't realize that her husband is also a top-notch musician, and they've made albums together.
Yes, yes, yes. So that we came together, even in this pandemic era. Well, following all those instructions and the regulations, but people came together, basically. Then we signed the establishment of the Japan Council of History Council of New York.
Yeah.
And that was just an establishment, like come together and share the views, share the determination, share the vision. Then after that, we worked so hard to make things happen. And it requires a kind of a fundraising. The people don't know what it is. Now people become to know this, but at the time people don't know. But I really think this is very, very important and significant for the future. So the consulate worked so hard to persuade headquarters of foreign ministry to provide certain seed money. And it worked. So here we are. Then, and I really hope that by you do this kind of the reporting, and this means more and more people become to know this. Then we can expect like a generous support from the general public.
Right. Very well said with all that. Something I was thinking about was, what is the oldest Japanese business in New York that is still there? Is it Katagiri?
First mission came from Japan 1860. Then the 1868 major restoration, like a Japanese version of civil revolution, took place and new government came in. Then 1972, the Consulate General of Japan in New York was established. Then the very first Japanese companies, I think it is Mitsui, it opened their office 1876.
Wow.
Means almost 150 years.
Yeah.
49 years. So,
that's longer than most of the American companies that have been here. So that's significant.
Exactly. So the day before yesterday, Carol Black mentioned that the U.S.-Japan relation is covering the 2/3 of the U.S. own history.
Well,
so,
in doing research and having worked in the entertainment field, everybody thinks that, I should say the majority of people think that most of the Japanese population in New York is in Manhattan, yet I found a lot of the Japanese population's in Hartsdale or around there in Westchester. Has that been the case for 60, 70 years, or did that area become more Japanese-centric, the Scarsdale, Hartsdale in recent years?
I better check, but in the say 50 years ago, the Fort Lee was almost Japantown.
Oh yeah.
But it's also changing. So nowadays, the Japanese business people or scholars who have families tend to live over there because Manhattan is too busy. So if we see our own staff of the consulate, the big family tend to live outside. Let's say like a single people or the people who don't have kids or tend to live inside Manhattan. But
Got
it's
it.
mostly because of the educational opportunities. So those who have a kids who have a good opportunity to give the good education inside Manhattan, they live here. So that's
Well,
a kind of a tendency. Yeah. Oh,
as
but Darren, if you are interested in this kind of the where the Japanese people live in New York area, and Professor Daniel Inoue's book is fascinating. He checked the 19th century and early 20th century how the Japanese people, Japanese American, live here, depending on the jobs, the sort of the social structures, and it's fascinating. Yeah.
Well, you are also fascinating. And the video of you playing the national anthem of the US went viral. When you recorded that, did you expect that it was going to be seen all over the world, or was that just something you did for fun? You clicked upload and then you forgot about it?
So actually, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
That was, the thing is, if not for pandemic, my band had an opportunity to play in Philadelphia at the occasion of independence sort of ceremony part of it, but it's all gone. But still, 4th of July comes, and so the CBS is here, and she and her team suggested that we should do something to play national anthem or something. Then, oh, that's a good idea. Then I'm not good at the guitar. I'm not good at piano, but I have a passion. So
I disagree. I have to interrupt you. You're not good at it. When most people say they're not good at it, it's that they can't play the basic C and D chords. You are good at it. You're just very modest.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for your nice word. Then I just love Jimi Hendrix. I have every sort of Jimi Hendrix album. Actually, when before he passed away, he had issued only 3 studio albums,
Yes.
1 live album, and 1 smash hit album, only 5. But after that, so many boxes and the bootlegs. I almost have all of them. So much so I love Jimi Hendrix. And so if I play national anthem, I just want to play like that. But that was a kind of a little, to be very frank with you, little controversy inside the concert. Is that like too hip, too wild? And actually, after Woodstock, and his play of that way was criticized by conservative people. So yes. I saw the footage of Jimi Hendrix showing some talk show. And he said, "Oh, your playing was criticized," and he said, smiling, "Oh, I think it's beautiful." So 50 years later, or 60 years later, and now the American people just realized that was beautiful, and that was a sort of a demonstration of American freedom and diversity. And so I think I can go for it. But still, remember, last year still Trump administration, a lot of conservative views are prevailing. So it's better to make sure that this is from the heart gratitude and respect. And so wearing like a tie. I wear the bow tie, but yeah. So that's what happened.
You're playing Fender in that video. Are all of your guitars Fender? Do you have an endorsement of Fender?
Well, talking about Jimi Hendrix, it's white Stratocaster. I have it, but in Tokyo. So that's the Stratocaster I have here in New York. So I played it. That's my favorite one.
Yeah. My favorite story about Fender. I had the pleasure of actually interviewing Leo Fender's wife. She wrote a book about the history of Fender a couple of years ago. But I have a friend who's a musician who went to a signing of the guitarist Yngwie Malmsteen. Do you know Yngwie Malmsteen?
Yeah.
And He brought his guitar to get signed by Yngwie Malmsteen, and Yngwie signs it, play Fender, Yngwie Malmsteen. Whenever I see a Fender guitar, I just think Yngwie Malmsteen, play Fender, and all that. Is Jimi Hendrix your favorite guitar player, or just one of them?
No, not just one of them. One of the very few guitarists. But probably I like Jimi Hendrix most. And I like Jeff Beck.
Sure. So you're more of the blues kind of player. Do you like Michael Schenker, or is that too hard rock for you?
Honestly, too hard rock for me. Because when I was a middle school kid, I loved Simon Garfunkel, James Taylor, and Beatles. And in high school, I started to listen to the British rock. But they're more like the Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Pink Floyd, Yes, King Crimson, that kind of, so to speak, progressive rock using synthesizers and sort of influenced by classical music and jazz music. Then I love those bands. And a friend of mine told me, oh, you should listen to Jimi Hendrix. In Japan, we call him Jimi Hen with a great respect. Jimi Hen. Then it was very different from that Beatles. They're very different from Pink Floyd, very different from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. But I was so much fascinated, and I started to listen to it.
Well, with music, I find that there's a very interesting cultural exchange between New York and Japan. And growing up, most of what I learned about Japan, unfortunately, but kind of fortunately, was due to video games, baseball, music, professional wrestling, all of that. I would see all these great American performers doing very well in Japan, and then sometimes see Japanese performers doing very well in New York. So there were a lot of all-time huge Japanese artists who play live in the US, they tour here, and they kind of do one show in New York, one show in Los Angeles, and that's the Japanese tour. So I find it very interesting that you take a band like, say, X Japan. I think they're just called X in Japan, correct?
Yeah.
Yoshiki's band.
People call them X Japan.
Okay.
Yoshiki is a leader, right? And then drumming and composing.
Exactly. Well, they got to play Madison Square Garden here. You know, a band that doesn't really ever tour the US. They do 1 or 2 gigs in the US, and they play at the Garden. And I think they put that out as a live recording. You see a lot of interesting Japanese artists who've put out live recordings from New York performances over the years. And that's always been very interesting to me, the cultural exchange of that.
Yeah, exactly. But talking about the cultural exchange between US and Japan, and I really put stress and emphasis on jazz. Because when the war ended, the jazz became like a sound of freedom in ears of Japanese people. Because there are two very American, right? So before the war, and only very limited number of the music lovers knew jazz, but not many people. But after that, after the war, all those the US forces were stationed and soldiers were stationed. So for the entertainment and to encouragement of the American soldiers are stationed in Japan, all those clubs became the jazz club and started. The Japanese people, without knowing it, getting used to the sound. It's a very unique sound, very different from Japanese traditional sound. And that became a big impact to all those musicians, including Akiyoshi Toshiko-san. She started to play classical piano. And after she was born in Manchuria, right? You know that, right? Then after the war, she came back to Oita. The family had a very difficult economic situation. Everybody was in those days. And she had a great talent to play piano, and she read music score. So she was recruited to play the piano when she was a teenager. Then she was so fascinated by jazz, and jazz chose her. And it's an amazing story. And it was Oscar Peterson and Norman Granz who found her before anybody. So she was very much unknown even in Japan, but just Oscar Peterson and Norman Granz, great producer. recorded her. And that's amazing things. And I think that's a great sort of story. And not many people know it, but I think that story should be told.
She is a major label recording artist.
Yeah.
And has been for 40 years, 50 years.
She recorded the first album in Tokyo by Norman Granz was 1954, I think.
Yeah.
Three or four. That means almost 70 years.
Wow. I mean, how many people are recording albums that long, let alone at a high level for that long? So she's in very, very rare company. And it always intrigues me when you have an artist like that, that in this country, they're a huge star. In this country, they're a little bit of a star, and then they're unknown in this country. In other words, it's like being a business, a small business in a way, where this territory you're popular, this one you're unknown, this one you're not. So it's such a fascinating career to have, where you're bothered when you're walking down the street here. You're not bothered when you're walking down the street here. But in the jazz world, yes, she's a legend.
Yeah. And also because of this SNS world, the information can travel at once, every corner of the world. So I think more and more music would be known to many people if you have interest or willingness to open your mind and to listen to new kind of music. And that would be great because culture have been sort of developed by mingling with other elements. The music is the same. Jazz was created mix of the Western classical music and church music and blues. And the classical music itself has been sort of developed through a mixture of the various different rhythm and tones. Like German music and Italian music come together, then Mozart was created. So I think, yeah, we can expect more and more fascinating new sound will be coming.
You as a guitar player, did you ever try and learn jazz?
Oh, yes. I love jazz. It's difficult. It's a different language.
Got it. So when you started playing guitar, now you mentioned being a prog rock fan and then learning about Hendrix. Do you have a style that you specialize in? What does your band play? Because I'm not actually familiar with your band. I only saw the video of you playing on YouTube.
Oh, my band is like a standard Beatles, Eric Clapton, and some of the Japanese music. Yeah. And
wow.
So you name it. Eagles. Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully we can get another gig from you scheduled because the Philadelphia one was canceled. Is that something you're talking about with your bandmates for?
Yeah, yes. We were prepared. And actually we did, yeah. Do you live in New York?
I live on Long Island, New York. Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. Do you know the Kitano Hotel? It's
yeah. It's 26th Street or something in Park.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And they do have the place called Jazz at the Kitano. So supposed to be jazz music and but they were generous enough that they offered us the opportunity for our band to play.
Wow.
So we did the charity concert to support the families of victims of the 3/11 and 9/11. And we played like more than one hour, 2 shows. And so, yeah, I just love it. But this is amateur.
Hey, it still takes a talent to be able to perform in front of people, not just look down at your instrument, sitting down. Once you're standing and you're setting up sound equipment and you're in front of people, that is a talent. And you'll find that some people can perform, but not really play. And other people can play, but not really perform. So you have to meet the two there, you know?
Oh, it's very interesting. But yeah, I think for many people, I think this is a natural extension. When you play, look down your fingers, then you get better. Then you have a desire to pray in front of people. Look at me. then you got the kind of excitement. Then the more you practice, the better you will be. Then the better you be, the more opportunity you meet with your bandmates, and then it starts. So it's fun. It's so
That
much
makes
fun.
sense. Yeah. Well,
Do you play any musical instruments,
I
Darren?
play guitar. I play bass.
Oh,
Yeah. My wife went to school for music. She plays piano, but she's the real musician. I'm the guy who's listening and telling you what's going on in the music, where she's the one who reads the music.
wow. Who is your favorite?
My favorite band
Oh,
at the moment, I've been getting really deep into the catalog of Kiss. A lot of people think that Kiss is just like a 2 or 3 song band, but there's a lot of parallels between Kiss and the Beatles in that you had 4 songwriters who all sang lead, and they all had different dynamics of what they did. And also Cheap Trick is another favorite band of mine. And what would Cheap Trick be without Japan?
Yeah, they were very popular though. The 2 guys look good looking.
Yes.
Musically so, but 2 ugly guys, musically great. And
Absolutely.
great mixture. And the live at Vulcan became a big hit. And actually, Cheap Trick became famous and popular first in Japan.
Yes.
That influenced the American audiences, right?
Exactly. There are certain of my favorite bands, certain ones that became famous in Japan first. Judas Priest is another one. They had a live album called Unleashed in the East. That was them playing live in Japan when no one cared about them in the US. And I think that's a common thing, that a lot of bands I love got famous first in Japan and also had careers long-term in Japan when their albums were not coming out here. Like I said before, Michael Schenker.
Yeah.
Who the Scorpions were famous first in Japan.
Oh, yes, German rock.
Exactly.
Virgin Killer.
Virgin Killer.
Before Michael Schenker, Ulrich wrote.
Yeah.
The lead guitar player, and I liked him a lot. But by the time Michael Schenker joined, then my interest shifted from heavy metal to more like a jazz, classical.
Yeah, it's this list of ours. Deep Purple, that's another band that meant more in Japan than it did here. I mean, the heavy metal magazine of Japan, Burn, is named after a Deep Purple song.
Yes. I once played that song. The solo part is so tough. Richie Blackmore is a great guitarist, especially in the studio. Not that in live, but
well, Richie Blackmore lives here on Long Island. A lot of people don't realize the number of music stars that live here on Long Island, just 20 miles outside of Manhattan or so.
Yeah. Richie Blackmore lives in Long Island?
Yes. Yeah. He's here. And Joan Jett and Billy Joel and I think just like how there's a lot of history of Japanese in New York that people don't know about, there's a lot of Long Island history that people don't know about also.
Yeah, Long Island is a great place. And I know that Billy Joel grew up there.
Oh, yeah. That is correct.
Anecdote about Billy Joel that I know is when he was 14 years old, he saw Ed Sullivan's show in February 1964. Then that watching Beatles, the TV, changed whole his life. And by that time, before that, he's smart and a good score, the school, and also he learned the Beethoven and the classical piano, but he totally changed. Then 3 years later, he was really into rock music. Then the principal of the school asked him, "What's going on? Your score is going down. You can't graduate." Then the response from Billy Joel, according to some book, and he said, "I may not be able to join Columbia University, but I will make contract with Columbia Records, the biggest recording company of the world."
Yeah.
Then 10 years later, it became true.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And most people don't really realize that Billy Joel, between that teenage path and between Piano Man and all these great songs, he had a really bad heavy metal band that was on either Columbia or Sony called Attila.
Yes. That's one like box.
Yeah.
My Lives, titled
Yeah.
My Lives. And that CD box included that Attila's sort of a song. He's like almost a Keith Emerson kind of.
Yes, exactly.
He's a good pianist.
Oh, excellent. I mean, who's better?
Yeah. Maybe Elton John.
Yes. Okay. He's better. You do have your better people, of course, but
yeah, but
not many people who are better.
as good as Elton John, and he's great. I saw him several times in Tokyo, in Washington D.C., and in Madison Square Garden. The amazing thing is, in Madison Square Garden, I had a chance to. I was invited. Then my next box is like 3 generations: little kids, dad, grandfather. They all enjoyed Billy Joel songs. He's like a shining New Yorker and the sound of America.
Yeah.
Like Paul Simon the same, I think.
Definitely a few artists that transcend the generations. And yes, Elton John is one of them for sure. Well, I think we have the same musical taste here. I maybe go a little more heavy metal, but
yeah,
same taste. So you have been so generous with your time. The last thing I want to ask you is, we've talked about the museum being in development. We've talked about your national anthem performance going sort of viral. Is there anything else in New York that's coming from the Japanese consulate that we should be looking for? Any programs, any things that you can say that we should be looking for?
Well, there are several things we are doing to unite or to foster friendship between Japan and New York. And one is what we call Obento project. Bento, do you know Bento? Bento
Yes.
is like a lunchbox. And the Japanese community, including the consulate and the other entities, have been providing the bento lunchboxes to first responders, NYPD or fire department or hospitals or schools and transportation people. Giving in the token of our gratitude and respect in the difficult times of the COVID-19. Now we see the light at the end of the tunnel, but still we are under the influence. We are under the shadow of this COVID-19. So we've been doing this bento project to show our gratitude to those people. That is a good way to show our gratitude to New Yorkers, and also a good way to tell the Japanese culture, the food. And actually, I myself delivered the bento to NYPD.
Oh,
one precinct. Then all of the huge guys using chopsticks very well and say oishi oishi. That was delicious, and it was a great moment. And the other thing we've been doing is they had a very famous TV program called Saturday Night Live, NBC. Using that term, we started Friday Night Live. That's a consulate, my residence, because it's very difficult in the pandemic to play the live. So following the instructions and guidance of the New York State and cities and CDC, we invite very limited number. If not COVID, we could invite like 100 people, very packing. Because of the social distances, we only invite like 5 people or less than 10, but still audience. And the musician play in front of the audience. That makes music more lively. And we've been live streaming that live, Friday Night Live. Then, so we started last October, and we continue to do this. So when you have a time, please come.
Okay.
Every third Friday of the month.
Every third Friday. And actually, my friend who's a filmmaker, he wanted me to ask if movie screenings are going to continue in the near future from the consulate. He said that there was some excellent programming.
Oh, that would be great, because the previous month of the Friday Night Live, what we did was a combination between painting and jazz piano improvisation. It's influencing each other. So painting and jazz music, just like the Ornette Coleman and Jackson Pollock. So we did it, and filming. We asked the Japanese TV crew to watch professionally, so filming. So that movies, sort of movie things and music would be a great combination, I think.
I think so too. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing, not just for New York, not just for Japan, for the global community as well. We need more people like you making everyone get along.
And if I may, Darren-san, you asked, your final question is what we are doing in the city. Then I mentioned Bento and Friday Night Live. The other interesting thing going on is Radio Taiso. Do you know the Radio Taiso?
Yes.
It's a radio exercise, so hearing the music, and we started Radio Taiso at Central Park. And we started like first early March, every Saturday, 9 o'clock at Central Park. And so many people recently come, not only Japanese, but Americans. So they practicing, because under the pandemic, we were forced inside the house. It's nice to be outside. And so share the time with your friends or your acquainted people and doing the exercise. It's very healthy. And now it's a good season. So we've been doing it. The interesting thing is it's pre-recorded music by Japanese, but not English version. So our special band plays that music for radio exercise. So that's a new thing.
And what's the best way to find out about all these events and developments? Is it the Facebook account for the consulate or a website?
Yeah, and then our Facebook carries a lot of information. So please check.
Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. Just keep up all the greatness over there.
Thank you very much, Darren-san.
Paltrow.